Do we need to write these notes down?
What?
Do we need to write the notes
Yes,
down?
you're going to have these notes down. You are responsible for these. You will be tested over these notes. Remember what I told you. I do not, and yeah, go ahead and start filling. Can you feel me moving around? You know me, I don't really stand still. Is that
Yes.
gonna be okay? It still takes your breath?
It covers a wide space.
Okay, good. Does it cover where I am now?
Let's see.
Because I can move wherever I need to.
Who was the smart one? Oh, it's beautiful.
Sounds like 1080 HP.
For your ears. All right. Yeah, I see you.
Do you see me?
Who is missing? We do have some.
John's missing.
Okay, John's gone on his,
Jesus
but
is
everybody in the
missing.
class is here.
I'm right here.
Yeah, his little one say suit.
In public speaking, there is a man that is known as the father of public address. That man's name is Aristotle. Aristotle was a Greek philosopher. He was taught by Plato, and Plato did just what I'm doing right now. He stood in one spot. He was the sage on the stage, and all of his students listened to him. And there was really an aura about a teacher at that point. The teacher was speaking. The people, the young people, of course, there weren't girls that were allowed to go into the classes during the Greek times, but the young men that were there were in awe of their teachers. And Aristotle was in awe of Plato. And he learned from Plato, but then Aristotle actually took and began to develop his own way of teaching. He became the teacher for Alexander the Great. He was known as the man who really set up what good public speaking was all about. But Aristotle had a philosophy that we want to look at today, and that philosophy is a good man speaking well. This philosophy of a good speaker, when Aristotle set this up, he said these 4 words, and even today, after all these centuries, we still abide by Aristotle's concept of a good man speaking well. Now you're going to notice here we have a subject. What is the subject?
Good man speaking well.
What's the subject though? What's the subject?
The man.
The man. Okay, what is the action?
Speaking.
Speaking. What kind of man is he?
Good.
So he's a good, right? He's a good man. So we've got an adjective. And how is he speaking?
Well.
So we have an adverb. So we have an adjective, we have a subject, we have a verb, and we have an adverb.
Amen.
If we take out any one of these, we destroy the philosophy. And so let's look at what we could do that could change that philosophy. Now, can we have a man speaking?
Kind of.
And that's generic, right? Man or woman. We have a speaker in front of us speaking. But here's what Aristotle says. It's not enough to have that man speaking in front of you. He has to have that adjective in front of the subject. He must be a good man. How many of you have listened to a speaker that was really dynamic? I mean, really dynamic. But his or her life did not show you that they meant what they were saying.
Joel Osteen.
If you know people like that, then it's very hard for you to enjoy listening to them, no matter how well they speak. And so let's take, for example, in the past century, probably one of the most widely listened to speakers in the world, who was able to move audiences to do unbelievable things, took a country and shaped that country into probably the greatest power that ever existed during that time period until it was overthrown. And this man had such power that audiences would go crazy. Even if you don't speak German, if you've ever watched any PBS shows about this man, you probably were almost mesmerized just by the way he spoke, even though you couldn't understand what he was saying. You know who I'm talking about?
Hitler.
Hitler, that's right. And so, I don't think any of us would call Hitler a good man, right?
kinda.
But he was a man speaking well, and he was a very effective speaker as that man speaking well. But Aristotle would have said that's not what we want as a part of our philosophy. Now, I'm a preacher's wife, so I can say what I'm about to say. I love preachers. I love preachers, but some of the preachers I have heard are so terrible. Not because they're not good men. They are very good men. They just don't know how to speak well. And so, if you are a good man and you're speaking, but you don't speak well, you're ineffective. So Aristotle said you had to have all of these put together in order to be the type of speaker. So, in starting this class, I need you all to understand, my prayer for each of you is by the end of this semester, you'll understand what it means to be a good man speaking well. And that you'll incorporate all those 4 words to make yourself the kind of speaker that you should be, that will be very effective. And that's what we're going to try to do this semester, is teach you how to be effective. Now, in order to do that, we're going to look at Aristotle's 3 principles. And he had 3 principles that he taught. And again, these principles still hold today. The first one is ethos, or ethics. Anybody give me a description of what ethics would mean? When we say ethics, what does that mean?
Would you still bread to feed your family?
Anybody? What do you think ethics, Michael? What do you think ethics means?
I just gave, I don't know if I gave you a good example.
Oh, give it to me.
Name is a ride.
What?
Name is a ride.
Go ahead.
Would you still bread to fill your, would you still bread to feed your family?
Okay, all right. Because we would say stealing is wrong, right?
Right.
Letting your family starve would be
It's
wrong,
even
right?
worse.
So what's the ethical thing to do there? And
bread.
ethics, I think that's a really good example to begin thinking about. What are ethics? Let me give you an example of ethics. Let's just say Stephen. That Stephen's family is just filthy rich, okay? And Stephen's in my classroom, and his daddy comes to me and he says, Miss Caldwell, we are so glad Stephen has you for a teacher. This college class is going to make the difference in whether he gets into Harvard or not. So, Miss Caldwell, we know you're going to do a good job teaching Stephen, and we'd just like to give you the keys to this brand new Mercedes-Benz. Thank you so much for being a good teacher for our son. I take that car key, I go out and I get my brand new Mercedes-Benz and I drive all over town. And I am so excited. And Stephen makes an A on his first speech and the rest of you make B's. And what do you think? Now, Stephen might have really made that A. But ethically, did I do something? Was it against the law for me to take that car? It wasn't. Anybody could give me that gift if they wanted to. But ethically, I then put myself in a position that anything good that came from Stephen in my classroom, all of you would question me because I had taken a bribe in your estimation, not a gift. And so sometimes ethically, we can do something that legally is okay. Of course, I think this is totally dishonest. I mean, I'm so adamantly, this is dishonest. But I have my students who will say to me, oh, Miss Caldwell, I just borrowed their homework. I didn't cheat. I just borrowed it. You copied somebody else's work. That's not ethical. If you don't do your own work, then you don't deserve the grade. And the same thing, if I tell you something, ethically, I should be living what I tell you. And if you see me doing one thing and I say another thing, then it's very hard for you to believe that what I'm saying is really the truth. So again, ethics are important, that when we get up here to speak, and I think one of the best examples I can give of this is a man had a package of cigarettes in his pocket and he came to speak to my students on the dangers of smoking. Now, he didn't tell us that because he was addicted to smoking and he couldn't stop. He was just telling them they shouldn't smoke. Now, do you think my students, and he probably was because he was addicted and had all these problems with it, but that's not what he shared with us. He shared with us that they should never start smoking, that smoking was bad for you, but he had a package of cigarettes in his pocket. Do you think he was believable to his audience? He was not. It's just like you guys. It is easy for us to stand up and say, I'm a Christian. Here in East Texas, that's a pretty common thing for us to say. Then we walk out in the hall and we're knocking some little kid around and we're laughing at them when everybody else is making fun of them. And then you stand back up here and you say, I'm a Christian. Pretty hard for the people that are listening to you to believe what you're saying because your actions show something else. So your ethics are important. Once I've lost faith in someone's honesty, it's very hard for me to ever regain that again. And that's one of the worst things I think a person can lose, is the belief that people have in you. Now the second thing you're going to notice here is called pathos. And I want you to think about creating a path to your audience and how important that is. Well, how do you think you create a path to an audience? How would you think, how might you create a path to your audience? Any ideas on how you do that?
Talk about something they can relate to.
They have to relate to it. Very good, Megan. If they can't relate to what you're saying. So I can stand up here all day and tell you drugs are horrible. I can tell you the dangers of drugs. I can tell you what drugs are going to do to your body. I can tell you the facts and I can give you all the statistics. But until I create some kind of path to you personally, it's probably not going to be as effective. But if I can say to you, one of the people I loved most in the world was my nephew. And he was the love of my life. My sister, when she had him, I was 13 years old, and I thought there was no one like that little boy. And I watched him grow up, and he was one of the most special people in my life. When he turned about 15, he and his friends decided to try marijuana. And they kept saying, it's not going to hurt anything. This was in the 60s, and it doesn't hurt you, no problem with using this. It's not going to hurt anything. And then before we knew it, he was into harder drugs, and I had to watch as my nephew went down in the most horrible way imaginable. I had to be there with my sister when my sister was called and told to come that he had been killed in a car wreck because he and his friend had been so high that they ran into an 18-wheeler going full speed. And I had to watch my sister never recover from what she had had to suffer with her son. So I'm going to tell you, drugs are bad. Now, did I create a path? It wasn't just me giving you facts. It wasn't just me. I created a path. The same thing. Probably most of you are patriotic. You love your country. You love what America stands for. But if I can create a path where I can talk about certain people who have given their all for this country, when I can help you understand what it means to stand there and salute that flag, how special that is, then that creates a path. Sometimes that path is created through laughter. That's an emotion that we have, and there's nothing wrong. Stephen, I've already talked about what I think you have such a great personality, and Samson, I know what a sense of humor you have. So some of you are going to have these great senses of humor that you're going to create that path through laughter. Others of you are going to be these beautiful, dignified people that just create it through your dignity and the way you are. It's created in a lot of different ways, but you have to create a path to your audience, and that's very important. But I'm going to tell you what, it does not matter how much you can deal with their emotions. It does not matter how good a person you are. If you don't have facts to back up what you say, and that's where the logos comes in, the logic. There must be logic in what you are saying. So it's